Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I do give all praise, all honor, all glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rekakdash, the Barnes, the Apostles, and that was a great millstone for teaching us His truth, peace, and blessings to the whole collective of Israel. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father, Hebrew. Bahashem is the name, Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Background lesson, as you see within the title, we're going to be going to these wicked women and how they love problem making. And usually you would say, problem solving, but in this case, dealing with these wicked, rebellious, cruel women, they love problem making, starting problems, especially from nothing, man. And this is why it's wise to stay far away from these she demons, man. It's just not worth dealing with. The cons far outweigh the pros. Because usually you list the pros, which is the so-called good things, and the cons are the bad things. And guess what? The bad things far outweigh the pros of the so-called good things, man. Because as you get throughout the scripture, these women are to be pillars of rest, a help. But in reality, nothing but a burden, man. Causing a ruckus, problems for the man. You're especially seeing the wicked, the wicked and rebellious things that these women do. The mindset that they're especially walking in. That rebellious spirit, man. That they hate and despise the man. The man's not needed. Wanting to be Miss Independent. A feminist. And you're seeing that spirit heavily being pushed all throughout Babylon, and really this world in general. This is why you're also seeing these heathen women, the nation are now begin to follow the ways of Babylon, But I came across this post. I thought I'd make a lesson diving into it. I was trying to think of a title. And that's the one that came to mind, dealing with these wicked women and how they love problem making. As you're about to see. So let's read this real quick. I got a few scriptures. It shouldn't be too long of a lesson. But it says, so I hit, and she says her baby daddy up like, hey, the kid's been asking for Chick-fil-A all day. And to no one's surprise, it was the ninja woman. But she says, tell me why this man shows up with bags of groceries. Or I'll finish off the top part and finish that. Chick-fil-A all. She's been asking for Chick-fil-A all day. Can you come take them something to eat? And said, tell me why this man shows up with the bag of groceries, talking about. And she put talking about in the. Type that out. But it says, tell me why this man shows up with a bag of groceries, talking about this more responsible. Sir, ain't nobody asked for this ish. Now my kid's looking at the dang bags like, where's the 12-piece nuggets and mac and cheese at? And really, she was the one that was one. Chick-fil-A. She's used her children as that scapegoat. And so they're the ones that wanted it. But then he had the nerve to say this is more responsible and will last long. And men are known to be more logical. Solving problems. And for the women, it's the other way around. More prone to emotion, causing problems, which you see right here. Now, this is more responsible and will last long. Boys, they just wanted some quick from their favorite place, if you broke to say that, instead of getting them hyped like that. And this is what you got to deal with. This is why it would be wise to stay far away from these demons, man. Speaking of these wicked women. And not saying you can't go out and get one. Just be wise to stay away from them, especially with the times that we're in, man. With how these women act and are today. This is not worth dealing with. And you see this right here. I don't even think this is a satire post. Usually you'd see posts like this and people are kind of making a joke or it's satire. I won't be surprised if this is not satire. That if this is real. I'm pretty sure it is real. Because how a lot of these women act, man. So the man bought groceries, food that's actually gonna last, and that's probably around the same price as if he if he would have bought Chick-fil-A. You know? But you see this woman cause a ruckus, and really she was the one that wanted the damn food. You know? But let's get these scriptures. I thought I'd make a lesson out of that post. Because he solved the problem. He solved their hunger. But she want to raise and cause a ruckus about it. Well, you didn't get him Chick-fil-A. You didn't get him a 12-piece chicken nugget, some fries with a drink. And once that probably amount to all the whole price of the groceries he spent. This is Ecclesiastes 25:16. That says, I'd rather dwell with a lion and a dragon than to keep house with a wicked. Well, you know how wicked, how cruel you gotta be? That the men would rather dwell with a lion, a dragon, than to be surrounded by you? That should raise, a flag. But you're not good. I don't want to deal with them in the first place. This and that. Now, these women gotta go. And speaking of these wicked, cruel women, not the few sisters that are out there. But I'd rather dwell with a lion and a dragon than to keep house with a wicked woman. And you see one example. What's in that little image we just read? And you see worse examples, man. Far worse examples of things that these women do. This is Proverbs 21:19, and it says, it is better to dwell in the wilderness than with a contentious and angry woman. Now, I mean, that's plain. Let's see, it's better to live alone in the desert than with a quarrelsome, complaining wife. G&T, better to live out in the desert than with a nagging, complaining wife. So you see, it is plain as day, as we just read in the previous scripture, how the men would rather dwell with a lion, the dragon, than a wicked woman. So that should just be an example of just how obnoxious and just far gone, how wicked a lot of these women are. That the men would resort to these types of things. And you especially wonder why a lot of these men end up leaving. A lot of these households, man, because a lot of these women push them out. This is Proverbs 30:20. But that's especially this rebellious spirit that you see being pushed all throughout Babylon the Great. And really, that's what this devil wants. Now, this is Proverbs 30:20. That says, such is the way of an adulterous woman. She eateth and wipeth her mouth and saith, I have done no wickedness. So this woman will be caught red-handed. I didn't do it. I didn't do any of that. While the crumbs are all over their mouth, their face. While the what I'm looking for, the proof is there. Is the point I was trying to make. Because you see within any movies or even in real life, you have little kids trying to sneak in the pantry, eating cookies or getting chips when it's past bedtime, whatever the case may be. And then the parents would sneak up behind him saying, well, what are you doing? The chips or cookies behind his back, crumbs all over his face. Nothing. I didn't eat anything. I didn't do anything. That's these women for you, man. It's such a way of adulterous women. She eats and wipes their mouth saying, I've done no wickedness. And really, it's gotten to the point where these women are coming out on TikTok, on Instagram, posting videos of them admitting to committing adultery, just being wicked, rebellious, saying they do it again. You have women in the comments praising them for doing so. So just going to show how out of order everything is, especially these women. Got a few more scriptures. As in Proverbs 9:13, it says, a foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple and knoweth nothing. Whew. Also, why you have that saying, and you will see within these movies, just as an example, where they'll say, just sit there and look pretty, just be quiet. Well, the men do the talking. There's an order, man, and these women hate and despise that order, especially within these relationships. Because you, as a man, you putting your foot down within these relationships. You setting a boundary is so-called misogyny. It's too controlling, toxic masculine, all these different things, man. In reality, these women just hate and despise order. They want to have the freedom to do whatever they want to do. They want to have the status, of being in a relationship, but not having the responsibility of one. And really, within a lot of relationships, they don't respect the man at all. This is why they end up wearing booty shorts, going out, showing pretty much everything. And if you say anything about it, you're too controlling, you're insecure. And that's the one thing I hate, man. That's their favorite go-to. You're insecure. So when you have, or you want respect, or you want order, it's all of a sudden a problem. But it's going to these women that have no respect, man. Out of order, rebellious, and really just through, man. And you see far too many examples of that. Especially on TikTok. You have these women wearing next to nothing. And you have these women in the comments saying, I wish my man would let me wear that, this and that. And you also have the dude that let her wear that standing right next to her. So you also have, a lot of these men are also, a problem too. But you're mainly speaking of these women, man. So a lot of you SIMPs, you shrimps, are also going to get it, man. Because they also, come defense to their women, and especially, to their woman, and these women in general. Say, if you don't let your woman wear whatever she wants, you're insecure, this and that, you're too controlling, yada, yada, yada. Like, what? And I could bring up, many examples, but that's, with the lessons. Proverbs 9:13, a foolish woman is clamorous, she is simple and knoweth nothing. Got a few more. Now, this is Lamentations 4:3 says, even the sea monsters draw out their breast. They give suck to their young ones. The daughter of my people is become cruel, like the ostriches in the wilderness. And you see how these women are, especially when it comes to their little ones. This is why you be careful of who you're dropping your seed into, man. These women will use them against you, and really just really be a whole problem. You have a lot of these women, which you see many examples where they'll go out to party, leaving their young child by themselves. I remember there's one specific case where I believe she was gone for, I want to say 2 weeks, if I'm correct, out partying, doing whatever. And she came back, and that kid was deleted, gone. I believe he was starved and all this stuff, and it was a whole case about it. And you see a lot of examples like that too. This is 1 Timothy 2:12. But I suffer not a woman to teach, nor to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. That's what I want right there, to not usurp authority over the man. And you see the complete opposite in today's society, where the woman is put on the pedestal, where they're the ones on top. They're the ones that wear the so-called pants within the household in these relationships, which is completely off and out of order, man. That's why I made that point earlier. This is why when you see men, putting their foot down within these relationships, establishing that order, these women want to get out of it. This is why they say they're pushing this, my body, my choice movement, that they can pretty much do whatever they want. Extending, that boundary even more. And if you put your foot down saying you don't want her wearing that, you don't want her doing that, talking to other dudes, all this types of stuff, you're insecure, toxic masculinity, you're too controlling, and you will have these women in the comments backing them too. And it's a bunch of, single, wicked women. And you see in a lot of cases where you have a lot of these wicked, single women out here pushing for these women in these relationships to get away from that man or to do something heinous, And a lot of times will follow after, these things that you wouldn't be saying. So you also gotta be careful of that within these relationships, of who pretty much your woman hangs around. Because you see, they'll be either peer pressured or like to follow whatever the group is doing, and they end up doing something stupid. And you see that just in various ways, Lord's will, tying these points together to the best of my ability. Because Isaiah 5:20 it says, "Woe unto them that call for good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter." So first, we're going to show just how out of order, how out of whack things are, and just no reason why this place needs to go, and why it especially a wise thing to stay far away from these demons, man. Speaking of these rebellious, wicked women. Of course, not saying you can't go out and get a woman if you want to, but it's giving cautionary advice. Because we've been given this knowledge and understanding for a reason. This book has been written for our learning and our understanding, especially with how close we are to the end of this place. It just wouldn't be a wise thing to do. But if you do so, be wise about it and just be wary. But that's the point right there. Don't stall it out, make it long as to be. Doing close out, give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh B'Shem Al Shabbat Shem Shalom. See, that's one Lord's will.